First order of business is disclosure of computer interest, general nature thereof. Seeing none, it's a long time, but the minutes from December 12th, 2019. Any errors or omissions? Move it and second for those minutes in place.
I'll move it.
Second by Cerna, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
You're just a job, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay.
I can do it verbally if you'd like, sorry.
Well, I think I can see everybody, so I see
Yep.
everybody's hands up, so motion carried. Yep, I got you, Rick.
Thank you.
Delegations, none. Budget discussion, capital budget. We'll turn it over to you, Evan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and
You're really going to speak up.
the mic-
Right close to the mic.
There you go. Good evening, is that better?
A little more.
Okay. So tonight we have capital budget in front of you. The intent of today's budget committee meeting is twofold. One is to bring forward capital projects for the coming year and the following, because we have a multi-year budget. We have to come back every year to review and approve the following remaining years of the budget. Today, so we will look at the projects that we are proposing for the coming year, but before that, what I've done this year is I have also brought forward a complete snapshot of the township's infrastructure in an attempt to highlight the kind of assets that the township holds and needs to maintain and continue to replace as we move along. So if we switch to page, I would say the asset report card is on pages 11 and 12, which I think the committee is quite familiar with. But I would just like to draw attention to a few assets as samples. If we look at page 13, we have the roads inventory there. We have about 273 center-line kilometers of roads, primarily rural. And you see that the replacement value of that is about 116 billion. So that on a very flat average works out to about 500,000 per kilometer. If you just did a very straightforward average. But if you look at the urban, we have about a little over per kilometer, and that alone costs $1.5 billion. So just trying to draw attention to the extensive value that these assets have. Similarly, the bridges and culverts, you will see we have about 33 between the bridges and culverts, with the replacement cost of 31 million, which roughly translates to over $1 million per bridge or culvert. And you will see that our ongoing project this year, the Cressy Line Bridge and Culvert, has a budget of about $1 million. So these estimates put forward by the consultants when they did the asset management plan last year are very realistic. They were not broad estimates or generalized numbers at all. Moving on to street lights and sidewalks, we don't have a huge investment there. But if you look at the sidewalks at the top of page 16, you'll say it says 5 kilometers of sidewalks with a replacement value of nearly $500,000. So again, these are all expensive pieces of infrastructure that the township holds. The vehicles and equipment, we have had several discussions in the past, so I won't take very long. Again, although I would like to reiterate that in the vehicles and equipment, you find that there's fire vehicles and fire equipment, which are high value items, which have very specific end dates and renewal dates that we have to follow. The pier project is something we have just completed. We have some more work coming there, and we have been investigating, and perhaps the director may speak to it a bit later on about the some of the repair costs that are still expected and that we have been investigating. So that is our overall infrastructure that we hold. If we look at the 2019 replacement value, it adds up to about 173 million, of which nearly 140 is, of course, your roads, bridges, and culverts. So those are your key assets, which are high-value assets, which need to be maintained for the connectivity of the township. When we look at page 21, the sources of funding, as a small rural municipality, we largely depend on the gas tax funds and the OSIP funds for some of the roads criteria projects. And then we have to rely on funds that we save over the years to be able to undertake some of the other projects or buy vehicles and equipment. And then we have the actual projects for the year. If we go to page 23, this is the entire capital budget. It includes all the projects that were previously proposed or have been added based on the need that has been identified, or if there are cost updates, cost estimates that have to be updated. That's what you will see here. There is one thing I would like to mention. If you look at the third line there, the replacement project for servers, computers, it shows in 2019, we have actually spent about a little over $8,000. That actually belongs on the 2019 for the computer servers replacement line. I have inadvertently put it on the website project line, so that actually is there. And then in 2020, also we have had some expenditures related to computer and server replacement. However, we have for now tentatively categorized it as a COVID-related expense because it does fall in the eligibility criteria. That may be something that the committee or council may revisit when we finalize our year-end numbers. You'll see the way the budget document is laid out is that I have provided you the current 2021 budget and the adjusted budget where it applies. You will see there is an increase or decrease shown in that column. So there are a couple of new projects here. One is the broadband towers project, which was something staff is still working on. We are getting all the details together and it is proposed to be brought forward separately. So the estimate here is based on initial calculations and preliminary discussions that staff have been having, and it is proposed to be funded through the unconditional grant that the township received last year. That was the intent at the time, the discussions that were held at that time. But there will be more details coming forward in next meeting or so. And then the only other item that I would draw attention to is the peer project, where I had put down a to be determined number because at the time we were still in consultation with contractors and so on. So perhaps the director may have an update. And so that's how we come to a 2021 adjusted budget of a little over $2 million and about 1.4 million for 22. I can speak to each project if you so desire, or I will just, I'll be happy to answer questions as you have them.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. That's a lot of information in a very short time. So I guess the first thing is questions in the room on what we've discussed so far. Jen?
Mayor Vanel, the work on the pier, was it completed in time so that we got our grant, or did we lose it?
The peer work was completed and we are eligible for the grant, yes.
Thank you.
Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on the IT line, going back to the computer budget, so I agree that we don't need to capture the COVID spending because obviously it wasn't the plan. But what I'm questioning, or because it is a capital asset, and I think the life cycle of all the IT assets, Cecil, is somewhat predictable. I just would like for those numbers to have more credibility in terms of knowing that it's not just a placeholder for what we might need, but more that there is an actual value that's been estimated based on an IT, replacement plan. Because right now, we're forecasting almost zero because COVID doesn't count. Everything that we bought doesn't count towards the budget. And last year would be way underspent also if it's 8,000. So then it makes me question, so is the 25,000 for next year real? Is it actually planned?
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, Cecil, I'm going to take a stab at this because there's one thing I like about Cecil amongst several, is that he has a very beautiful spreadsheet with every year laid down with his entire plan for software, hardware, whether it's going to be an operating item, whether it's a life cycle replacement, or whether it's a brand new item that we need to buy. So he has it very well laid out. And so the operating usually relates to our software licensing renewal. That's what flows through our operating. And then the life cycle replacement is what this 25,000 is for. And to his credit, in 2019, we have had only 8,000 because we purchased a couple of laptops and so on. But the two key elements that were there was server replacement that he had budgeted for and planned for. But based on a lot of technical stuff that I cannot quote, but basically he was able to get a warranty or extend the existing warranty so that we don't have to actually go and buy servers worth $15,000, $16,000. And as a result, we did not use those funds. So the numbers are true. For 21, for example, his budget document shows about a little close, I would say close to about 23,000 that he has specifically identified whose laptop, whose desktop, which iPad, everything is laid out there. So there's definitely a method to the numbers in the question.
As a follow-up, so is that captured in our asset management plan? Can we have a bit of a view on that beautiful detailed plan?
Yeah, that could be shared. The asset management plan that we have, which is posted on our website as well, in order to meet the criteria of Ontario Reg 58870, it has basically identified all the critical infrastructure assets, all the ones that we just looked at. It did not get into the specifics of furniture or computers at that point. So that would be the next refinement that we would want to do to the asset management.
Any other questions? Reverend? Mark?
Thank you. Here we are on page 26. See, we budgeted for a trailer 2021. I didn't really know anything about the trailer. $20,000. I guess maybe if you're not, like, what are we getting for $8,000? Pretty expensive trailer.
Through you, worship. Yes, that was an emergency replacement for a trailer that had failed its annual inspection. So it was needed for the Cressy Line project. And unfortunately, it didn't arrive in time for the Cressy Line project, but we did secure those 6 additional quotes for that trailer, ranging from the $8,000 mark up to the $11,000 for that enclosed trailer.
So the cost of the trailer is $7,900. I'm not sure, were you referring to 20,000?
I said 8,000, that's pretty close.
Yeah, 8,000.
And I see we're budgeting for a wood chipper. Now, we've had some issues on that one, and it should be working all right. If it's not, we should be taking it back when we got to fix it. He's more than willing to repair it. It's free. You know, the fellas.
Yeah, if I can speak through your worship, with that one, we moved it ahead to 2021, just due to I think it's since the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a significant value of repairs on that machine and downtime having to rent one. But the roads staff are undertaking that initiative to get it repaired again. But being how often it is going down, we want to move that up in 2021.
Okay. That's it for now, thank you.
Any other questions for either any of the staff? Joyce?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so you talked about you might have some numbers or some indication around the pier project. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Through your worship, that project has just recently come up, so I asked her to include that here, but as we didn't have a number yet on what the solution was going to be. So it is a new concern that we had down there with part of the pier deck being undermined by all wave action with how rough it's been down there. So we staff have had conversations with the consultant from the pier project coming up with a solution. And at this point, they're putting together some preliminary numbers that we can put to this, finding kind of a small scale solution and a large scale solution. And then we can kind of hone it into exactly what we need for the most cost efficient method. But at this point, we don't have a number to put in here, but it's work that will absolutely be needed to protect that new pier project.
So are those additional work then considered addressing deficiencies of the initial design, or are we having to start a brand new project? And if so, do you know, are there other grants that you can look at for that?
So at this point, it wouldn't be considered a deficiency from the project. It's kind of a result of the project that it's kind of created a new issue that wasn't foreseen prior to the work. But at this point, I'm not aware of a grant that would apply to this work. We are putting a bunch of numbers together using our own staff to complete the work, so it's not something I'm looking to tender out, but we completed in-house to be as most cost effective as we can.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Correspondence? Oh, go ahead, Danny.
So the projected capital budget overall, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Aaron, so it's obviously over what we had budgeted. So a big chunk of that is the tower project that we will hear more about at some point. So what about the remainder? Where is that coming from? So are we going into reserves just a little bit faster than planned? Or, because I know there are quite a few things that were unspent in 19 and 20. So does that mean that things stayed in the reserve and now so just make sure that where that money is coming from, or we're going to fall behind the reserves?
So, yes, so through Mr. Mayor, if you look at the totals, you will see that our budget for 2019 was well over 4 million, but we did not actually spend that. And some of the projects in 2020 were deferred because of COVID. So those funds are unspent. So those have stayed in reserve and they will be used in the coming years. So, and some of the projects have got updated costs, so they will be a little more taken from reserves, but some other projects have come in under, so they have offset in other areas. So
Excuse me.
the years 21 and 22 are proposed to be funded from reserves. They will not be an impact on the tax bill. So there is no additional requirement for funding. The way the transfers to reserves have been received, that's why allows us to have that money in reserves right now to proceed with these projects. And even though some of them have now gone up a little bit, cost have that much of a just to be able to manage those things as well. And that's shown actually the reserve statement that is also actually.
So I know last year we went into a similar situation where we reviewed the capital budget when there was still a little bit of information missing, and as well as not having seen the rest of the budget to put it all have the full picture. So one thing we did last year was to, so recognizing that there are some projects that really should move forward quickly, and we know they're going to be approved and we've been planned for. So recognizing that some projects should move quickly, we had modified the resolution to not necessarily approve the capital budget in full until we have all the information, but modify the resolution to just capture the key projects that should move forward. So I know for me that I would like to proceed this way, particularly because there's almost $500,000 for which we have no information. So to approve a capital budget that includes a couple of significant question marks, I certainly would not be in favor of that, but I would be in favor of approving tonight or whenever that information is available, those projects that need to move forward quickly.
I will revert that to CEO, but I did have one or two thoughts on that. Is that I appreciate the inclination or interest in seeing the whole picture. However, you have to recognize that capital projects are quite independent of the ongoing day-to-day activities. They tend to cross years as well, so they are not, they don't necessarily behave in the same fashion as operations. So, and the other aspect is that particularly for these 2 years that we are considering, they are all funded from reserves which have been set up and which have been funded for the purposes that they are being proposed to be used for. So the impact, if there was an impact on taxpayers, then I understand that we want to see all aspects of the township budget before moving into capital items as such. But that doesn't apply in this situation. And for those two projects where there is still more detail, definitely this is a, it has been said for the report that we will be bringing for more information in this too. And but this is more of a in principle approval that we're seeking for those projects, because this is something that has been partially discussed in the past, and so we are now going to bring forward more information. I think that the CEO would like to.
Any other comments?
Your worship, through you, I would concur with everything that the treasurer's indicated. The two projects that we do not have a complete picture of yet, so the restoration works are necessary for the here, as well as the broadband tower project. We will be having additional information in the next couple of weeks on those particular items. I'm hoping we'll have some information at that point. So I would suggest a couple of things. The two, particularly the broadband tower, the number that's in there is essentially what I refer to as a placeholder. Again, that particular process is going to be subject to actually going out for RFPs and construction, all that stuff. So our best estimate at this point would look at that, and as the treasurer indicated, it is to be fully funded from grants. Some of that grant money is in reserves currently, but there is also some additional funding that is available right now for this purpose, for dealing with rural internet solutions. And we anticipate applying for that as well. This type of project is exactly the right fit for that particular grant program. So that would mean less having to come from reserves if we're successful in that grant application. But we're not looking for council to say we're spending $450,000 tonight for broadband power, because there is additional information that is needed. But we are quite confident that we want to undertake a project of this nature in 2021. So in order to do so, we need to be able to bring it forward to the stage. We won't have all of the details on exactly how it's going to roll out. We're going to have more information for you in the next few weeks, but it's probably going to be a few months still before we're at a point where we're going to be able to actually go out and seek proposals and that type of thing. So this budget item is intended to be a placeholder while we work through those processes. So I understand it's a big number. I don't disagree with you, and it's much larger than what some had anticipated. But we will be presenting you with significantly more information in the next couple of weeks that is going to give you, I'm quite confident, it will give you a comfort level in being able to move this forward. But having said that, I certainly appreciate that, tonight it's an unknown, and if council wishes to hold back on those particular projects, then I certainly think that we could, there's no difficulty in doing so, and we can bring that forward. We want to make sure you have a clear picture tonight, and that we're coming back to 2 months and saying, oh, by the way, we want to add in, another $500,000 in spending that we weren't anticipating. With respect to your other question about approving the priority projects, the deputy mayor and I actually had a conversation before the meeting, and again, we don't necessarily have that firm listing this evening, but we are approaching budget a little bit ahead of schedule, and I think that for the next meeting, we can certainly have more detailed information in all of these areas available to be able to reassure all members of council and the public that sufficient detail is there to be able to make informed decisions. So my suggestion to the council tonight is that you, even though we have a recommendation in front of you, is that you defer taking any action until the next budget meeting. Give staff an opportunity, a chance to be able to report back on a number of these different questions that we had this evening, and then provide that additional narrative to be able to allow you to move forward in a more confident position.
I have a question, Dave.
I got Chester, and then I'll give you
Okay.
Chester.
On page 26, trucks 70 and 71 and 86 half-ton trucks. I can see the 64,000 probably buys two of them. The 32,000 will buy the third. What's the $100,366 for? And the 20-year end forecast.
Right, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So the 64,000 and the 32,000 are the budgeted amounts. So it's 64 plus 32 works out to about 96,000 is the total budget. And the trucks are actually, the cost is about 100,000. So one is the actual amount that we're paying, and then the other two are the budgeted amounts. So it's for the same purpose. We budgeted 64 and then 32, and then all three trucks are expected to receive this year, and they will cost us 100,000.
Okay, so that's the sum of three trucks.
Yes, that's
I have one more question. We're talking about trucks. Truck 87, 89, 85, 3/4, and 1 ton. Truck 87 for estimate adjusted for a 1 ton truck. Why are we all of a sudden moving to heavier trucks? I believe we only have one trailer that needs maybe a heavier truck to pull. Why are we saying that we're replacing 3 trucks with one for $37,000 or $38,000? Do we really need 1 ton? So we already have a 3/4, or might not be that?
Through your worship, yes, that's correct. That's the estimate has been revised for a 1-ton truck due to the use that truck is. That truck is for use the previous service stuff. that, with 3/4 ton, that's inadequate, the work that, so it's revised, here for a month. Just due to the nature of the business and this is the season that we, go through here. The 1 ton is more appropriate, truck for that purpose.
When all is said and done, we're looking at 87, 89, and 85. And we're going to be replacing those 3 trucks with one ton truck, is that correct? Or how many trucks are we going to be ending up with here? 3 or 4?
So, so there are 3 trucks that we had initially budgeted, 87, 89, and 85, and a budget of 37, 38, and 17. We had 37 budgeted the first year in 2020, then 38 in 21, and 17 in 2022. Right? And then, but then truck 87 is being deferred, so we are not spending the 37,000. In 21, we are going to spend the 38,000 to buy 1 truck. And then in 22, we are going to buy the 1 ton truck, but at a slightly higher cost. So we are buying 2. We had initially proposed 3, but we are now buying only 2.
So the other 2 trucks we'll get rid of, will we?
I believe that is what we usually do with our vehicles and other equipment.
So our complement will not increase, we'll still have the same number of trucks.
That's,
We're just making sure that we weren't enlarging our fleet.
no, that was the whole plan that had been brought forward last year to council, and that's what is here for.
Thank you. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're talking about these broadband towers for $450,000. And I see it's a line item in the budget, but it says it's also covered by grants. So my question is, why is it even in the budget? If you're gonna get $450,000 from the government, why is it there?
Mr. Mayor, that is just standard accounting methodology. Whenever we receive funds from any source, whether it's the government or our own tax levy, we would put it as part of our reserves or as part of our budget. And so.
Okay, good. One more question. I see in the wood chipper, it says $50,000. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Matt, is that to fix the old one, replace it, or where's that 50? Is that rent? What is that?
Through your worship, that's a placeholder number for a replacement chipper. I believe we did a current market check that to replace the existing chipper with a similar model would be about $75,000. So this is a starting number here to start the conversation about replacing that chipper. While we currently repair the one that we have, putting this piece of equipment out of tender, it's likely to get better pricing for that we'd like to go through this process.
Like you can't buy a new one for 50 grand.
And that's why we like to go up for tender with this one. This was, I believe, in 2022, the original budget had $100,000 in for the chipper, and then we were moving this project up, hoping to go into tender and see what we can get.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Any
I'm
other-
good.
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This year's budget,
Like
in this year's budget, I have 4 projects not completed. The question is, will they be brought forward back to this year? The first being here, now I have Community Place, and Lions Mall, Green Yellow Park, Hines. Number 2, Malahide Community Place Work Building, Whiting. Number 3, Tracy Street Park, upgrade and new play. And number 4, Flagpole and Center Park for the non-show planning. Have they been brought forward or what is the status of those?
Mr. Mayor, so yes, those projects will be brought forward to 2021. The parking lot lines and the other project that you mentioned, those were actually part of our operating budget for this year, which is now going to be done next year. And then the Tracy Street and the 7th Ave Park. Tracy Street, I believe, is shown here for next year, and 7th Ave will also be next year.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
There now, we've beat up this tractor out quite a bit, but just another kick at that, I guess. Are we getting one tractor or two tractors? Because in the 2020 budget, I see 175, because I believe that's what we budgeted for the new tractor last year. And now I see in the 2020 year-end forecast is $103,097. Is that the price that the tractor finally came in as, or why is it not showing as actual as opposed to year-end forecast?
Or Matt, who wants to respond?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, that $103,000 shown was the actual cost that of the tractor that council recently authorized the purchase of. So the $175,000 was what was budgeted for the tractor, and then $103,000 was what the working at.
Okay, so that's not a second tractor.
Any other questions?
Mayor, through the matter of route, I'm going back to page 26 and the third row down, tractor trucks. I'm so confused because I guess it would help me if I knew what they were. A number means nothing to me, but I know the one time we had. Are we planning on replacing the big one time? What are we doing with that? That's the one time we got it. That's 354.
This is for the 38,000 in 2021 here is for it's a 2012 truck that was passed down to the community services department.
That's the one time?
No, I'm sorry, that's the 3/4 ton, goes in 2021.
Guys, if you've got a one time, you're going to estimated adjustment for one time. You're going to give it one time?
That's for the 2022. I'd have to check the vehicle replacement plan. I don't have the answer off the top of the plan here.
Yeah, what do we get this year? 3 trucks? And we've actually got a lot of our staff guns now, with smaller motors, and talking to Ryan, our gas guns. I don't think we should, there's an app. We really should be moving that way. These new trucks have a lot of power, we can do as much as we have to, but not fuel. But we're not getting rid of that big wheel.
I'm gonna have to check the vehicle replacement plan on what this refers to.
Pretty low mileage, so really good shape. So just don't want to see us getting, look at that all new truck thing.
For the most part, they are following the vehicle replacement plan on here. I'm not sure which one for 2022, what truck number that is. I'll have to check that plan. I'm sorry.
Sometimes it'd be nice to get a list of the hours. Make it easier to go on the hour. Thank you.
Yes.
Better now, on that one-ton truck, when all is said and done,
Jeff, you're
I think it's on now. That one-ton truck, are we gaining a truck there? And so we're not getting a truck there, which one are we getting rid of? 3/4 or the old one-ton for the dually?
Again, I'll have to check the vehicle replacement plan on that one, but we're not adding another vehicle with this plan. They are for replacing expiring.
If I may, Mr. Mayor. I would also just like to draw attention that the field replacement plan is what is reflected here, and that was brought forward in detail last year to council, and it was approved as to which truck would be replaced when. And the other aspect I would like to bring forward is if you look at page 17, it has shown that our vehicles, some of the vehicles are at pretty much the end of useful life, and that is why that whole fleet replacement plan was brought forward. And that's what we are following since that time last year. So there is no additional trucks being purchased, it's all replacement, and some of them are simply being passed on from one department to the next as the plan had at the time proposed.
Yeah, like the replacement time, whatever, who puts that number out, that's the government. They say after so many years, something worn out, but they have nothing to back it up. They don't come and look at it. It could be sitting in the market and you say it's junk. Right?
I believe our staff also assesses conditions. It's not, we take, if you look at the asset report card, it states that there are certain assets where we use professional studies like the road need study or the OSIN report for the bridges. And then there are certain other assets that are reviewed by staff based on their condition and actual on-site evaluation. So it's not a blind, just a static number that is followed in general.
Doesn't the government have a pattern and want to get rid of something with 7 years old?
And not.
Yeah, I think so. I never agreed with it because they don't. Same with our fire trucks. I mean, fire truck in Toronto is a whole lot more useful than fire truck. There's not reason to really put on. I'm pretty cheap when it comes to vehicles, but I still want to waste a lot of money on them. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Council? All right, we move on to correspondence. Anything, Michelle? Okay. Our next budget meeting is scheduled for November 12th. Everyone is good with that one? I think that was without number 4. All right, open question period. We've got 2 members of community. Either one of you gentlemen have a question.
I do.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have a statement. Yeah, very proud of you guys for statement on the track. I don't believe you need $170,000 tractor. I heard Mark was quite at the time that I was for sure on term. That's a good move. I mean, I know $170,000 tractor, that should be a big fight for a tractor. The work you're doing, I'm sure you made the right move. But also on the trucks, he's 100% right. These new pickups are so much easier on fuel. And a half-ton pickup today, some of those trucks have real great capacity. I don't know what you're using a ton truck for. I'd be surprised if you have any heavy enough to really need a ton truck. I guess that should be discussed further. But I know the new trucks do pull a lot even at half. That's all I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you. Bill, do you have a question or comment?
No, just observing.
Just observing, okay.
For now.
Any other questions or comments from either staff or? Michelle, do you want to correspond to Jim's question in the Elmer Express? I think that's necessary that we explain that.
Through your worship, I can speak to that this evening, or if you wish, we're going to have a detailed report coming back to you next Thursday that will explain the proposal and more information on the Springfield servicing, but if you wish, I can give a brief.
I think we should have an explanation because obviously Jim is concerned and I think we need to clarify that.
Certainly. I did forward some information earlier today to the council members for their benefit. We did have an opportunity to read Mr. Crane's letter to the editor today, and staff would like to put forth and comment on that Mr. Crane's assessment, in our opinion, is not necessarily accurate. There is legislation that's in place that stipulates that all municipal water and sewer systems are to be self-funded. What this means is that costs associated with municipal water and sewer systems are paid for by the users of those systems. In the case of the proposed water servicing for Springfield, the users of the system would initially be considered to be the developers that would be developing the properties.
The developers would be required to pay development charges and impost fees to connect new homes to the water system. The consultants, the service delivery review consultants, have indicated that extending water servicing to Springfield will cost more than $15 million and will require, their estimate, will require an annual debt repayment of about $290,000 over 25 years. So Mr. Crane's assessment of that is correct. However, as I mentioned, once development commences in the area, once new growth is taking place, it will generate development charges revenue that can be used to pay that annual debt payment. So it will, the intent is that there would be no resulting impact to the tax levy, because the essentially development would pay for development through those development charges. There may be a brief period when the construction of the water system is completed and before the first homes are actually built, that it may be necessary for the township to pay the annual debt payment up front. Staff still are reviewing options, but at this point, it would be the staff's recommendation for that short period of time until we start to collect development charges to pay that annual debt payment, that we would borrow temporarily from our own reserves to pay that annual debt and then pay ourselves back again using development charges once we receive them from the developers. So we've done similar situations for certain types of projects in the past where we borrow temporarily from ourselves and then pay ourselves back once the additional revenues are there. And that would be what staff would likely anticipate if it was to move forward. For clarity, it's not anticipated that the annual debt repayment will result in any significant increase in the tax levy, as was suggested by Mr. Crane. The process that I've noted would ensure that the cost of water servicing to Springfield is borne by the users of the system and not by the rest of Malahide taxpayers. The key message that I think that I would like to present to council and members of the public is that ultimately development will pay for development. The township may have to upfront the cost of borrowing for a brief period of time until the development charge revenues start to come in, and then would be able to recoup those costs from the development fees. As well, Mr. Crane had noted in his letter to the editor that the existing Springfield community doesn't have any issues with their water wells, and my suggestion would be that that really isn't relevant in this particular case as to bringing the water to Springfield. The goal of extending the water servicing to Springfield is to allow for significant new growth and development that would generate additional tax revenues in the long term and help the municipality become more financially sustainable for the longer period. So whether the existing community connects or doesn't connect, the purpose of extending the services is really to bring forth new growth and new development opportunities that aren't available now without those servicing, without that water servicing being available. And if council has any questions, I'd be pleased to comment further, but those are staff's preliminary comments with respect to the servicing aspect. And we will be bringing more information back to council next week as part of the report that we're bringing on all of the service delivery review recommendations and our suggestions for implementation strategies to move forward.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. And I think, thank you for clearing that up. Jeffrey, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor, I'm just sitting here wondering about this. How many houses are we looking at in this development? Because whatever houses we're looking at, that number has to be divided into 15 million or more to come up with the cost. And if it's 100 houses, that's 150,000 added to the value of the house, or the cost of the house. Is that correct, or?
Michelle?
Your worship, through you, the preliminary assessment that was done by Watson and Associates back in 2019. I can't remember the years exactly. I believe it was just last year when they were looking at updating our development charge bylaw. So they did a high-level review, and their assessment was based on a total build out of about 550 to 600 homes. So, you know, it's much larger. And then, of course, there is other opportunities to be able to, in addition to residential development, to look at potential other developments such as agri-industry, other types of things that are available. Once the water line is there, it opens up the opportunity for residential development, but it also allows for additional commercial and potentially industrial lands to be able to connect to, which would generate far greater tax dollars for the township moving forward.
Does the purchase of the land also come in to this equation for developmental charges, or, because right now we do not have land?
Yeah, your worship, through you, the municipality would not be building any of these homes or developing any of the privately owned lands. Those would fall to developers. The only thing that the municipality would be doing is constructing the services, the actually extending the water line to enable developers to be able to then take it and connect it. But we would not be purchasing land for development purposes or any of that type of thing. This would be all, we would bring the services there, and then private developers would actually develop the properties.
Would we not have to buy the land on which the water pipeline would be?
The pipeline typically runs through road allowances.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can we clarify something? Because I think between the paper and the consultant's report and the consultant's presentation, there are a few numbers that get used. And there's the 15.1 million versus the 5 million if we receive funding. So I want to clarify that the plan of 290,000 repayment over 25 years, that's not for 15 million, that's for 5 million.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, for clarity, 15.4 million was the capital cost that was estimated, of which the calculations that were done by the service delivery consultants contemplated a 2/3 grant from federal and provincial government, resulting in that repayment of 290. And again, more information will be presented to council in much more detail next week when we report back. But yes, that's correct. The consultants did acknowledge that they were presenting a lot of numbers that evening, and so I contacted him afterwards to clarify, and he apologizes to council and to any members of the public where that confusion was. But yes, it's based on 15.4 million capital cost, of which 5.1 would be initially debt financed through the township, that ultimately would be recouped through development charges and the development process.
Bill, did you have a question?
Well, I wanted to try to clarify because Michelle mentioned 15.4 million, and then she started talking about $290,000. We're talking two different things there. We're talking 5.1 million and 290, or 15 million and over 700,000. I'm surprised that we're talking about this tonight, but I certainly wasn't prepared and I didn't get on the agenda. But if it's coming forward as the council meeting next Thursday night, I'd like to now say that I'd like to ask you several questions, and I'm really concerned about. There's no benefit of water coming to Springfield to the ratepayers, current ratepayers of Springfield, but yet it's suggested in order to get benefit for the complete township, new residents and current residents of Springfield would be responsible to pay for it. It just doesn't make sense. The township putting no money into it and they expect to get all the benefits. And people in Springfield, 487 homes that are here now, have no need for the water. And like today, I don't know if it's going to be voluntary hookup to the water or if it's going to be mandatory. If it's mandatory, then you've got a real problem. If it's voluntary, then maybe. But I got 3 pages of questions that I just worked on, so if I could, I'd like to be able to Thursday night, after the staff report.
Sir, we can put you on the next agenda there.
But as it is now, if I hadn't came tonight, I wouldn't have found out the next Tuesday, it was on the agenda, and then it's too late to go out. I think we had, we send out the report.
Sure. Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to defend myself a little bit there too. But when it comes to this water business, I know, I would think you'd maybe consider, if we're gonna spend this kind of money, you could probably drill some real good wells. And I know a few years ago, 50 years ago, the golf course up on the hill, I know, Wilson Well drilled a well down there. I believe around 240, 50 gallons a minute, just for one well. I mean, it's gotta be much cheaper way to drill a few hundred wells and spend this $15 million or $5 million for our own township. And also, on this development, I'll give you an example, I shouldn't use name, but I will escape it, not negative. I'm gonna say it. Mr. Falls, used to be your deputy mayor, he created a subdivision over there in Lyons, and done a very good job of it. It took years and years for that thing to take off. And I know a few years ago, a friend of mine developed one in Pilsner, and he held on lots. He found he moved into this home, and 8 years or so of the lots. We're on a roll right now, this big roll. I'm afraid one of these times we'll go the other way. So I think we should be very careful on how we proceed with this water.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions, comments on our capital projects? None. Mover and second, report number FIN 20-18 until year 3 of 2019 to 22, multi-year budget cap will be received. And that notwithstanding that the remainder of the 2021-22 budget has not yet been approved, the municipal council will be requested to approve those capital projects identified in 2021 in the amount of $2,381,000, and that subject to the approval of the municipal council and municipal staff and directed to proceed with projects initiated so that 2021 capital projects can be completed on time with the budget.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as per previous discussion, I would like to defer the last two components to the next budget committee meeting after we receive more information. So I think we can receive, so I would amend the proposed motion to that we receive the proposed capital budget and fund for now.
Does that sound fair? Are you happy with that? So, as amended, it will just be to be received. So, moved by Jagger, seconder, Linder, all in favor? Hands up. Gary?
I'm good.
Worship, just for clarity, staff will be reporting back with respect to, we'll start the next discussions at the next budget meeting with capital budget, and hopefully we will have sufficient detail to be able to allow it to be able to proceed at that point in time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for our budget? None, moving second, the budget committee adjourned meeting at 8 o'clock. To meet again on November 12th. Okay. Let's get Winder, all in favor? There we go. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending.
Thanks, everyone.